Hi, good morning, everyone. We are on 27th of November, live on all the social media platform. Today, we have a very, very important topic. The country is getting concerned, the world is getting concerned with the new variant of virus. We all are not aware what's happening. So this session, we would just like to highlight what's going on in the world. The topic is COVID-19, the new variant, B.1.1.529. And today we have to talk about this topic, one of the eminent speakers and a doctor from India, Dr. Shashank Joshi. He's a consultant and endocrinologist, physician at Lilavati Hospital. He's also a member of COVID Task Force. He's also the past dean for Indian College of Physicians and a past president of Association of Physicians of India, apart from several medical societies. He has published more than 800 research papers and actively been involved in COVID research-based work out of India. Over to you, Dr. Shashank Joshi.
Thank you so much, Saurabh, and thank you, CMAAO. This is a very novel and new topic. I don't profess to be an expert in this area, but I have picked up what cogs were available from the last 48 hours. At the onset, I want to thank all our healthcare professionals from South Africa and African region. I think we must congratulate and compliment them for such high throughput genome sequencing as well as data transparency. And we congratulate them for getting out this, unlike the Delta strain, which was prolonged and had its own challenges. We saw that this new variant of concern had a lot of high science which emerged from it. So let me quickly say that as we talk, yesterday late night, WHO has labeled it as a new variant of concern. It is called as Omicron, and originally the variant was called as B.1.1.529. So let us look at some storytelling about it. And really the sequencing platform came from Tulio de Oliveira's group from South Africa. And he's the director of the KwaZulu-Natal Research and Innovation Sequencing platform. And these are his own words. This variant did surprise us. It's a big jump in evolution, many more mutations than we expected, because this new strain has more than 50 mutations. And especially after a very severe third wave of Delta. So you know that South Africa was having a Delta wave. So this so-called B.1.1.529 variant has a very unusual constellation of mutations with more than 30 mutations in the spike protein alone. And the ACE2 receptor, the protein which helps to create the entry point for the coronavirus to infect the human cells, that itself has 10 mutations. So overall, around 50 plus mutations have been identified in this new variant. Compared to that, the beta variant from South Africa had 3 mutations. It was called as a triple mutant, and the Delta variant had 2 mutants. But the focus is not really South Africa. The global spotlight started from Hong Kong. And a case was found in Hong Kong, 36-year-old man who had a negative PCR test before flying to Hong Kong to South Africa, where he stayed from 22nd October to 11th November. He tested negative on his return to Hong Kong, but tested positive on 13th of November while in quarantine. And that led to this whole journey of teams from Hong Kong, which have very good experience in SARS-1 and SARS-CoV-2. They have very good science-based researchers from there to South African colleagues, and they were able to put this on spotlight. So clearly, what are these variants of concern? And we all know the beta lineage came from South Africa, which was 1.351, and now it is 529, and that came from South Africa. It came in September 2020. It was more transmissible. It had an impact on immunity. It had an impact on severity. It had an impact on community transmission. So that was the beta variant which came from South Africa, almost at the same time when alpha was discovered in UK. So South African genome scientists were right at the top from day one as far as genomic sequencing were concerned, and we congratulate them. And that time the beta strain had spike mutations of interest K417N, E484K, N501Y, D614G, A704V. The gamma P1, which came from Brazil, came in December 2020. It also had a high impact on transmissibility. It had an impact on immunity and severity, and it had an impact on community transmission. So that's completely these two strains. The data is very clear cut and was available as we talk. And then came the Delta. The Delta probably originated in November or December 2020 in India. It was the B.1.617.2. Delta still is the global dominant strain. Whether you go to Europe, whether you go to US, whether you go to Asia, the most dominant strain on planet Earth today is Delta. And the Delta had spike mutations of interest in L452R, P748K, D614G, P681R. And it clearly was more transmissible, clearly had an impact on immunity as well as an impact on severity. And as I said, in transmission terms and in transmissibility, currently it is the most dominant strain. It is the first threat to Delta which has occurred 2 days back and probably occurred this month, and which is the so-called Omicron. Now we know that is B.1.1.529. WHO has rechristened this as Omicron. South Africa and Botswana are the first 2 countries to do that, and we'll talk about the Botswana patient also. There are more than 50 spike and various other mutations of interest, which I will dive and dwell deep in my last slide. The month of its detection is only November 2021. It has an impact on transmissibility, but I have kept it blank. It has an impact on immunity, but I have kept it blank. It has an impact on severity, but I have kept it blank. And currently the transmission is not community, but in South Africa, it could be community. And we'll have South African experts after my talk also talking about it. And currently it is sporadic and travel related. So from all other geographies, outside the geographies where it is already present, like South Africa and Botswana, probably the impact of this variant of concern is sporadic or travel related, inbound travel. Beyond that, probably there is no major impact. So this new variant is a C.1.2 from South Africa and several countries, is probably more infectious and can evade vaccines. In fact, many patients who have been diagnosed with these variants have evaded vaccines. We also know that the C12 has mutation rate twice nearly as fast as other variants. So it's a very fast mutating strain. And you can see here the various diagram here, where you can see the alpha, the gamma, the beta, the lambda, the delta, the kappa. And you can see here the global regions like UK, Switzerland, Portugal, China, Mauritius, and New Zealand. And in South Africa, you can see the various regions, the Gauteng region, the Eastern Cape region, the KwaZulu-Natal region, the Limpopo region, and Western Cape region. And it is from the Gauteng province where the transmission was very fast. And you can see on the right-hand side of the slide that this is where the real mutations occurred. And that is what can be highlighted here. And I don't want to go into details of the spike mutations. I will go in the last slides. But you can see here, whether it is the cleavage site, whether it is the N-terminal domain site, whether it is the receptor binding domain site, at each stage, you are seeing mutations. On the spike proteins, whether it is RBD or NTD, we are seeing 52 mutations. On the cleavage furin S1, S2 site, we are seeing some cluster mutations. So at every stage, we are seeing mutations in this new Omicron. So this variant, which has believed to be, and we don't know the full proof, it could now have originated elsewhere also from South Africa on November 24th, according to WHO, has probably brought a fresh surge of infections in South Africa. And as I said, the WHO first knew about this when a specimen was collected on November 9th. We also know now travelers to Belgium, Hong Kong, and Israel, as well as Southern Africa, have been impacted with Omicron. So that's something which we know, that Belgium has it, Hong Kong has it, and a Malawian traveler in Israel also has been infected with it. So what was the red alert? And as I said in the beginning only, that we must compliment and congratulate the South African National Health Laboratory Service. You can see here the story of South Africa. From May 2020, Jan 2021 to December, as is approaching November 2021. Initially, there were other variants. Then somewhere in September, you could see the green coming up, which was the beta, which was predominant. And as the May, June, July approached, you can see the green is becoming smaller and smaller. There was a little alpha lineage there, but Delta started dominating South Africa. So you can see that completely the beta of South Africa was overtaken by Delta between the months of May, June, July, August, September, October, and November. The Delta dominance, and Delta is still, as I said, the most dominant strain. But suddenly see what's happening in the last 2 weeks. Why people have had a global panic in this pandemic time is because in the last 2 weeks, you can see a red blot. The Delta is almost replaced in South Africa by B.1.1.529. And that's really the challenge which we are facing today. So this figure, I'm illustrating it better here, which is actually from the South African National Health Service, that the beta was replaced by Delta and the Delta is totally replaced by the Omicron. So this is what happened. You can see here that the various colors are illustrated here, and I'm sure you have seen this again from the date wise, that you can see the green here, which is the beta of the South African strain. Then you can see the gray here, which is the alpha, which is very small, and then came the red, which was Delta. So Delta was the dominant virus, and suddenly from nowhere you saw a little spurt which started occurring in May of C.1.2. And suddenly we are seeing the B.1.1.529, which has totally overtaken all the lineages, whether it is the C.1.2, the Delta, the Alpha, the Beta. Now the dominant strain is the Omicron. And this is what is the weekly test positivity rate from South Africa. You can see here very clearly, and this is from a Twitter tweet of Dr. Ridwan Suleiman from South Africa. And you can see the test positivity rate, which has gone up to 33%, which is pretty high. And this was the genomic sequences which were identified, and these are the mutations. You can see here the mutations on the spike protein, on the receptor binding domain, on the N-terminal domain, and the NTD, which is here, the RBD, the RBM, the S1, S2. You can see a lot of lineages. So what do we know about this variant? Well, probably from a Botswanian sample in Africa, they found that there were 30 changes in the spike protein. And they were able to find out that these were significant. However, scientists are still studying whether the variant and its effects will have more severe disease. So that is an unknown. Okay, whether some infected people display no symptoms, because a lot of doctors in South Africa said that some of this is asymptomatic. Many of the patients, like all the 4 patients from Botswana, had taken 2 Pfizer shots. And despite of that, they got an asymptomatic disease. So yesterday night, you can see that WHO came out with a statement that Omicron is a variant of concern. And the technical advisory group said that it clearly has the combinations of mutations of altered behavior of the virus. And because there is an important thing in detection, this variant can be detected by normal qPCR. So it is not difficult to pick up this strain due to deletion of the spike protein position 6970, like alpha. It will make it easy for the world to track it. So there is no cause of concern from a diagnostic standpoint, because the normal qPCR which is there across the world can easily pick it up, because there is a deletion in the spike protein 1670, 6970. And 90% of patients which are in Gauteng province, at least 1,000 a day, are this variant due to the qPCR proxy testing. So obviously that's where the red flag has come up. And this is what I was alluding to, the H-gene dropout percentage of cases, because they have a very high viral load. The CT values are 18 and 19 in most of them. Here you can see the CT value less than 30 for ORF or N-gene. And the red bars are the numbers of tests reporting the presence of SARS-CoV-2 from a tag path assay. and the solid blue lines are moving to the median age gene dropout. So you can see here very clearly that you can see a dramatically increasing trend, which has been seen from the province of the Gauteng region from South Africa. So what makes this more dangerous? Well, the early evidence suggests that there is increased risk of reinfection compared to the other highly transmissible variants, according to WHO. So the reason WHO declared it as a VOC is because this can get reinfected despite of natural immunity or acquired immunity with vaccination. So it's a very highly transmissible variant and it is at risk for reinfection. This means people who have contracted COVID and recovered could be subjects of catching it again. And that is the main reason a global panic erupted. Saurabh very nicely said that in the financial world, there was like a topsy-turvy. You could see some stock markets crashing down. This new variant possibly is 500% more competitively infectious. And that's the most staggering statistics. The reason people are worried is because of this simple statistic that it is a competitively infectious. And initially people thought that Omicron will be named as NU. And it is more than 2 times number of bad spike mutations than Delta. Delta had only 2 mutations, double mutant. Beta was a triple mutant. But this has 2 times more number of bad spike mutations than the Delta strain. So what is this virus? How is it different from other? And why is that 500% advantage which I'm talking? This new strain, Omicron, has a viral competitive advantage. And the new is actually Omicron. And you can see it is 500-fold more. You can see the yellow is 30% advantage. Delta is 70% advantage. And you can clearly see a shift to the left of almost 500% viral competitive advantage. And that is what has made this virus more deleterious. And this is reflected in this graph. So whatever we are seeing in the genomic strains of having the competitive infections, this clearly you can see in 2 weeks, in a span of 2 weeks. Okay, in a span of 2 weeks, you can see the beta was replaced by Delta and Delta is fully replaced by the Omicron. And this is the rapid spread. It has outcompeted all other variants in a very fast pace compared to all other variants of concerns. And this descended, you can see with the spike protein mutations. These are the spike protein mutations. This is Omicron coming up here. And this is what the Botswanian pickup is from the patient from Botswana, which was the insertion cluster. You can see this has 32 new mutations in the spike protein. This is a very, very high number. On the spike protein, normally we see 1 mutation, 2 mutations, 3 mutations. This had from the Botswanian patient 32 new mutations. And therefore, there is a growing hypothesis that this patient was immunocompromised, had taken 2 vaccines, was persistently having a reservoir of infection for 6 months. And that is why such a high cluster and constellation of mutations occurred in this patient. So ultimately, this viral escape occurred, and probably this could be an index case for understanding. So this is my last slide. Why is Omicron worrisome? It is worrisome because of the 4 things which I have put out here from a mutational standpoint. Number 1, it has multiple receptor binding domain and N-terminal domain mutations, which means what is the clinical implication as doctors treating COVID? That there will be resistance to neutralizing antibodies as well as therapeutic monoclonal antibodies, which means the monoclonal antibody like the cocktail we are using, say in India or many parts of the world, may not work, as well as the neutralizing antibody generated by the vaccine may not work. So that is our first implication, 52 mutations in the spike protein of the RBD and the entity. Second, the second point is there is a cluster of mutations. And I would like you to notice the H655Y, N69K, P681H adjacent to the S1, S2 furin cleavage site, which means the cell entry is going to be more fast, more efficient. So the transmissibility is enhanced. That is the second point. So number 1, resistance to neutralizing antibodies. Number 2, more efficient cell entry and enhanced transmissibility. Number 3, NSP6 deletion, Delta 105, 107. This is a similar deletion which was seen in alpha, beta, gamma, and lambda. But why is it important? Because it evades innate immunity. Normally, we know our body makes interferons and clears the virus. Whether I am having common cold or any viral infection, our body makes interferons and eliminates it. While when you get an NSP6 deletion, there is evasion of innate immunity, which means the interferon made by our own body, by the host to remove the virus, is antagonized. Again, that will lead to enhanced transmission. And the last point is it could be more infective and more virulent. And that is because of the R203K and G204R mutations on the nucleocapsid. So whether it is a nucleocapsid, whether it is the NSP6 deletion, whether it's a cluster mutation on the S1, S2 furin cleavage, or whether it is the multiple RBD, NTD mutations, that will lead to increased infectivity. So the Omicron is having increased infectivity. It is having enhanced transmissibility with interferon antagonism and evasion of innate immunity, enhanced transmissibility with more efficient cell entry, and resistance to neutralizing antibodies and therapeutic monoclonal antibodies. And that is what is making this strain very, very unique and peculiar. And we only pray and hope that we are able to contain this new strain, because currently the dominant global strain is Delta. The good news from Japan is Delta got auto-destroyed there and virtually got self-destructed there. As the good news from Japan was coming in, we could see that the second wave of Delta is almost on the wane. Genomic sequencing from India was showing that the derivatives of Delta, the grandchildren of Delta, are not as infectious as the original virus. Now we have a new strain which can completely replace Delta and might have sinister implications from a mutation standpoint. I think I'll stop here and I'll be more than happy if there are questions and answers. I'm sure that we will have colleagues from South Africa which will be able to give us some first-hand information. What I have collated is what is available in public domain on Twitter, on various other social media platforms. And I'm sure Dr. Angelique, which is with us, she'll be able to give us some details. I would definitely ask Dr. Angelique Cortez to please tell us what's really happening in South Africa. And again, on behalf of all of us across the world, we want to congratulate scientists, medical doctors, and healthcare workers from South Africa for being so transparent and telling the world that there could be a potential threatening new variant like Omicron, which may replace Delta. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. It was a wonderful explanation about the topic, very well explained, confined. I would request you to kindly close the slide so that we can see the screen. Yes, we have, before we can invite the questions from the floor, I would write Angelica from South Africa Medical Association and Dr. Akhtar Hussain to give some inputs to us.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Joshi, for your presentation. Interesting, we started to see the virus last week. It was just by sheer luck that we started to test again, as we haven't really seen in Gauteng. Any case, very, very, very few cases. And I am in the Pretoria area, which is the epicenter of this. And so what we see clinically, and for now, maybe 2 weeks from now on, the picture will change, but clinically, it's very similar to beta. Patients are only complaining of a very sore body with tiredness, not really having a cough or a terrible running nose type of thing. It's very, very, very mild symptoms. So far, none of the people that we have seen has got any oxygen problems. They're very mild. We have, as normally seen in the beginning of any wave, detect this mostly with the 40 years and younger, but different than the previous times we have started. Well, maybe the previous times we didn't test the children that much, but now we are starting to test the children, and so we have seen it in children. Easy to manage. None of these patients has been needed to be admitted. They could have been easily treated so far at home, and I have already follow up some of them for after 7 days, and none of them were any worse. Most of them are telling me that after we make the diagnosis, about 2 to 3 days afterwards, the symptoms disappeared. None of them had any smell or loss of taste at this stage, and our ICUs, there's no significant increase, but again, it's very, very early days. So this is an easily missed diagnose if you do not test each and everyone coming in with a sort of a scratchy throat or tiredness. It's an interesting tiredness that they are complaining about for about a day or two before they come to see you. What is, however, of concern is that we have seen that most of the, well, not most, we have, myself personally, and this is the same experience of some of the other doctors as well, that they have been vaccinated with Pfizer, and we're now starting to trace when was the last time. So it seems that most of them who had been vaccinated roundabout with their last shot in August are now might be at risk for getting infected. So what we also can say, it is transmissible. It's highly transmissible. It looks like that, but it's not as at this stage very virulent. It is very, very mild. It's very similar to beta symptoms that we have seen in South Africa. So difficult to say what's going to happen in 2 weeks from now on, but so far, it's nearly a question of why is all this hype? Why have they put us on a red list? It's not really something that is having a huge impact on the surgeries at this stage, as I've said, or on our hospitals. So I hope this gives you a bit of a better background, but clinically, not very sick, really not at all at this stage. Thanks.
So you want to add something on it?
Dr. Akhtar?
Dr. Akhtar?
I think he's there. Okay, meanwhile, he comes and add his inputs. Let's open the question answers for the floor. And Dr. Joshi, the first question which has come up is the vaccine, obviously with the new variant. Do we have any information how the vaccine will be reacting for the new variant? Is that something which is there?
So two things. One is that all the patients in Hong Kong, Botswana, and what Madam Angelique just said, had got the vaccine, and most of them had mild disease. So vaccines clearly will not prevent COVID or prevent the infection from this new strain Omicron, but probably will ensure that the disease is mild. But it is too early to say. Only time will tell whether there will be a significant immune response and there will be a significant outlier community which will rapidly deteriorate, will need a ventilator or die. Currently, there is no mortality reported in the clinical literature, but Madam might give us more illustration if people have died. As I said, we are only in the second week, and it is too premature to make any comments, and which is why we should not generate. See, whatever we see in genomics, we need strong clinical correlate. So what is reassuring from Dr. Angelique Coet's talk is that in the vaccinated population, the likelihood is that you will get sore throat, scratchy throat, and a peculiar fatigue or tiredness, and probably mild disease, which probably will get mitigated. But predominantly it is a vaccinated group which is getting a breakthrough. So I think vaccinations still have a role. They will always have a role. Remember, all these vaccines are early generation vaccines which are injectable. What would really be the game changers will be the nasal vaccines, which will be sterilizing vaccines, and probably may interrupt all these strains. Currently, of course, the strongest vaccine which can prevent any transmission of any strain is, of course, a double mask.
Absolutely.
Dr. Joshi, just a comment. We've in about 10 months, we've vaccinated 6 billion people across the world and erected a wall against the virus. And Delta has found a way through the weakness in the wall, and seems to be very successful at it globally. But do you see that this new Omicron can actually be strong enough to or outperform Delta and push Delta aside as what Delta has done to the other variants? I mean, do you see that happening? I know in your slides you mentioned a lot of increased transmissibility and so on, but or is it still too early to say? Thank you.
So I think, Dr. Chong, that's a very good question. From South Africa, the data is very clear cut. It has replaced Delta totally. In fact, it is behaving like a more sinister version of Beta if we go by Dr. Angelique's version. So the symptoms are like Beta, but it has clearly replaced Delta. In fact, the reason WHO and the global panic started is only because of that. This is the only current variant of concern which can outperform Delta. And it can replace Delta. So the Delta dominance seems to be over, but currently it is restricted to South Africa. So our job is to restrict it there and contain it there. The likelihood of that happening is low because we are in global travel. However, we may screen. All our RT-PCRs are only having a sensitivity of 70-80%. So 20 to 30% cases, you can still be negative. That's exactly what happened to the traveler who went to Hong Kong and back. You could see that the traveler who had gone to South Africa and went back to Hong Kong clearly was negative tested, but tested positive after a few days. So that is something which we have to do. I personally feel that looking at just the structure of the Omicron and the number of mutations it has too many mutations. Probably it may outperform Delta. Even, and there will be breakthrough infections. But only thing is, it may not, as Dr. Angelique is saying, may not be as virulent as it is projected to be. And therefore, we may not get severe disease and mortality. And if that is there, it will be good to know. But that only another 2 to 4 weeks will tell us, because you know, the deaths occur in COVID after 3 weeks. COVID timetable is 3 weeks. So I think we will have to wait at least for a month before we will know the clinical outcome verdict. Right now, we know the genomic outcomes, then the virological outcomes, then the early 2 weeks data, which Dr. Angelique said is mild, but only after another 2 weeks, we'll know if they get hypoxia and deteriorate, if they die, then we will have the data. So I think we'll have to wait mid-December. And by Christmas, we'll have a clear idea where we are going. But yes, it is the only potential current VOC which can outperform Delta. But probably now that we are wiser, we will restrict everything and probably might able to micro contain it.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. Always very clear. So it looks like if, let's say, the virulent, it's not so virulent, let's say by Christmas we'll know. If it's not so virulent, then it is actually in line with endemicity, because you want it to be more transmissible, more infectious, but less virulent. I mean, that's the way the virus is going, isn't it?
Probably. But as I said, it's too premature.
Yep.
Because we don't know. And as I said, this is in a vaccinated population. If the virus enters an unvaccinated cohort, or an immunocompromised cohort, or a comorbid elderly cohort, then, and if the outcomes are very serious and deleterious, you know, the numbers are too small, but we'll get that data soon.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi.
Can I have a question from Dr. Wong Kong? He's raised.
Yeah, hello everybody. Want to introduce some optimism. I'm thinking, is this cowpox? So is this the solution to the pandemic? I mean, if it's not virulent, then all we need to do is protect the immunocompromised, and it wipes out all the other variants and immunizes everybody, with a mild illness. Yeah.
I think that's a very good thought, and it could be possible. Protect the moderate to severely immunocompromised people and look at the positive part of it. I think Dr. Wong, I think that's a very good thought and suggestion. Let's hope and pray that this is what happens in the eventuality. But I think this also gets back us to people that we need to ensure that a large population of Africa has not been vaccinated. And as Dr. Chong very rightly said, that we have vaccinated 6 billion people, but the 1 billion, and a lot of that is in Africa. And even healthcare workers in Africa, I'm only told 1 in 4 have got vaccinated. I think we must ensure that rather than chasing boosters, it is the unvaccinated population which we need to vaccinate first and get them the vaccines as early as possible. See, the booster is only transient. It is not going to make a palpable impact on outcomes. If you have one exposure and 2 vaccines, it is as good as a booster, which is hybrid immunity. If you have 2 vaccines already on board, you have T-cell immunity, which we don't measure. We are only measuring neutralizing antibodies. But at least you will not lose your life. Let us vaccinate planet Earth, everybody in an equal way, in an equanimity way, so that we then can mitigate this. Because then what Dr. Wong is saying may be true, that you will have a mild disease which is manageable, like a common cold or a flu. That is what he's trying to allude at, and let us hope and pray that is what happens.
Dr. Sajad?
One important comment Dr. Angelique has made, that it is the unvaccinated HIV patient which will drive the mutations.
Okay. Can I?
Yes.
Surab?
Yeah.
Okay. Good as usual. As usual, Dr. Joshi, very informative presentation you have provided, particularly Omicron. Actually, I would like to know what the Anjali said, that this has a very mild symptom. Very mild symptom. Why the people are so much worried, and everybody is very horrifying that this variant will be a very serious variant and it can do this, it can do that. Even you have a vaccinated, even you are vaccinated, even then. So why it is called so dangerous variant? Why it is so? Number one. Number two, my question is that I have some internet problem. I could not listen something, or I don't know my voice is clear or not. The second question is that the people who have a single booster dose, somebody have a second or third booster dose, so will it help these type of people who have these multiple booster doses?
Dr. Sajad, very important question. I'll take your first question first. The reason this is worrisome is only because of this slide. Resistance to neutralizing antibodies and monoclonal antibodies, which means your standard treatment may not work. Number 2, enhanced transmissibility and cell entry. Number 3, interferon antagonism. And number 4, more infectivity. But we need still more data. So I think that is number 1. Number 2, your booster question. More and more boosters, will they be useful? We don't know the answers. Also remember, platforms are different in different parts. For example, in India, we have only Covishield, Covaxin, and maybe a little bit of Sputnik, which is adenobacterial platform or killed platform. Okay. While in Singapore, with Dr. Chong, he has Pfizer platform predominantly, mRNA platform. Now we know mRNA platform has better immunogenicity for 3 months. After 3 months, that immunogenicity wanes. So in that platform, probably you need to keep boosting every 3 to 6 months. That's what the data tells us, whether it's a Moderna or a Pfizer. But the data from Astra is saying, which is Covishield, which is predominantly India, and we have now data for almost 121 crore population vaccinated, which is a very large population. They have better T-cell immunity. 90% of India has got Covishield, which is an adenobacterial platform from Oxford, which is Astra. And that may not have the antibody very high, but it definitely has the T-cell population, which is much more robust. That's what they claim. So we don't know. So the booster question is work in progress. We don't know the truth of booster. But if you have taken a Pfizer, you need a booster for sure. If you have taken a Moderna, you need a booster for sure. If you have taken a Covaxin, probably you need a booster for sure. So most vaccines, full dose is 3 doses, probably. That is what will come out. You know, that ultimately, Dr. Kaisar, that will what will come. 3 dose ही लगेगा सबको. That is what is the full vaccination progress. And then maybe every 3 months, 6 months or 1 year. That we don't know. But that is how it will evolve. And Covishield or the adenovirus, whether it's Sputnik, Covishield also, they will also need a booster. I don't think that they will not need a booster. Everybody will need a booster. But the so-called boosting is because we are early in the disease. After 2 years or 3 years, we'll know that the normal protocol only involves 3 doses. 0, 1 and 6 months. That's where probably how most of the scheduled regimens will come. For example, for a Pfizer, for a Moderna, or for a Covishield. And Zydus already has 3 doses. It's a DNA vaccine like mRNA. They are saying you give 0, 1 month and 2 months. So some vaccines are already having 3 doses in their primary protocol. So that is where it is going.
Okay, one thing more I just in my mind, that what about the mixed vaccine? Say in Pakistan, the people are vaccinated basically the Chinese vaccine, Sinopharm and Sinovac, and now the government has giving the Pfizer vaccine as a booster dose, single dose Pfizer. So what is the advantage of this? And in some country, I think I have listened to Chong. The Chong is saying that the two simple Sinopharm and the booster is also a Sinopharm. So what is the difference? Is there any advantage of mixing the vaccine for boosters, or the same booster, the same vaccine as a booster?
So I'll ask Dr. Chong in a minute, but I'll quickly answer that mix and match is always better than the same vaccine. So if you have 2 Sinopharms with 1 Pfizer, that will cause better. It is called heterologous immune boosting, which means heterologous immune boosting, which will have a better immune response in terms of antibody profile, neutralizing antibody. I don't know about T cells, but also giving 3 doses of the same platform sequentially also will cause a larger immunity in the long run. So the data is available for both, but the mix and match, first data came from Spain, second data came from UK on the platforms. And then the data also came from Qatar, some parts of Middle East and some other areas, including Singapore. So currently the data is very clear cut that if you have 2 killed vaccines given, they are not very immunogenic. If you are giving a mRNA platform vaccine, it will boost the immunity much more than giving the same vaccine the third time. That is why the India third dose or booster policy is not yet out. They are studying mix and match, and they are looking for data to be studied, because in India, as I said, we don't have exposure to mRNA. But I'm sure Dr. Chong has an opinion on the same.
I think in Singapore, because the mRNA vaccines were first to be procured by the government and still tightly held by the government, the Sinopharm and the Sinovac were given to the private sector. So as a result, because the government is the main provider of the mRNA vaccines, most of the population have taken mRNA booster. I think we're up to about 20-something% of the population with a booster. Most of it are mRNA. But interestingly, among the medical community in Singapore, among our medical colleagues, a lot of us have chosen to do the Sinopharm booster instead of mRNA booster. I think we're going with the mix and match idea, and also because the doctors in Singapore were the first to receive the mRNA vaccines in January this year, and we didn't have much observation of the side effects. But over the whole year, from February, we all received it in January, February. From February to now, we've seen quite a lot of anecdotal data on complications and so on of the mRNA. A lot of the doctors are kind of worried about the mRNA side effects for the booster. So we ended up with quite a large number of doctors opting to go for Sinopharm booster as opposed to Sinovac, obviously, a better performing vaccine. And a lot of us are thinking in the long term, should we need the 4th booster? we will be quite comfortable with the fact that we will be doing let's say a 6-monthly inactivated viral vaccine booster, like a flu shot. So that's probably a lot of where we are going with this. Like I said, a lot of mix and match data is not really, it's just scrappy globally here and there. I think there's no big studies on mix and match yet. And obviously not, right? Because there are big pharma interests, government interests, and so on at play. So I think the mix and match is still not really, the data is not forthcoming at the moment. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, Dr. Chong, can you say what is the situation among the healthcare workers? Are they still infecting with the corona, or they are safe with the corona? The healthcare workers, particularly the doctors.
I think so far our situation in Singapore among the healthcare workers is pretty good. We were vaccinated first, among the whole population. We were the first to receive the Pfizer vaccines. And so I think among the healthcare, the general consensus is that the infrastructure, the protection, the PPE, and so on has been very, very adequate for our healthcare sector. So we never really had huge problems. And I think the number of physician deaths in Singapore, I think so far, as I can only, my colleagues, a lot of them are here, they may correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's one doctor who perished so far. And he did not take the
only one. Oh, very good.
Yeah,
very
just
good.
one physician death so far. That's what I can recall.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chong and
Thank you.
Dr. Joshi. Thank you.
Is Dr. Akhtar around? Is he around to give us some comments of what's happening in South Africa?
No, he's left, I think. I'll just talk to him on the message. I'll invite him again.
Okay,
So,
lovely.
any other member over here has any questions related to the
Dr. Pillai here, India. It was a very good presentation, particularly with the whatever information is available. It has been excellently conveyed to us. But this Omicron, the new variant, definitely is a threat. There's no doubt about it, because when you consider other variants, here the number of mutations are very high. Almost 50 mutations are there, and 30 is involving the spike protein itself, which is very, very significant. So when the spike protein mutations are there, then the transmissibility of the infection definitely will be much higher. And within 2 days, we have more information that more countries, they have been able to detect. Initially, South Africa, it has been 100 cases, which was reported. But now even Israel, Hong Kong, Belgium, Botswana, all these countries, within a day or two, we get reports that more and more people get infected. So as has been suggested, I feel that the immunization has to go on. How far immunization will protect people as far as this mutation is concerned is a big question mark, which time only will say. But still, the process of immunization definitely has to be completed. India, of course, we are in a safe zone, because the second wave still has come down and number are definitely much less. And immunization, even a double dose, almost 40% only has got it, but then maybe subclinical infection involving more people may be giving us a better sort of protection. And the process of immunization definitely is going on. In India, no new variant the consortium has reported as far as India is concerned. But this definitely is a threat, although this has been first isolated from people who are immunocompromised, particularly those who have HIV/AIDS, and also those who did not have vaccination. So, but then once a variant comes in, irrespective from what population, then that variant can affect even those who have been immunized. The booster dose, definitely, debate still goes on, as Joshi has correctly said. 3 doses may become a norm, and then just like influenza virus, every year you may have to have a booster. But then India is not thinking of the booster now, because let us complete the second dose with for all the eligible population, and that is what we are targeting at. So let us be more careful whether immunization will help or not. Let us complete the immunization process, and COVID appropriate behavior definitely has more meaning now. Wearing of the mask, that too properly, hand washing, sanitation, and social distancing, all has become center stage priorities. So let us concentrate more on those, and also on completing the immunization process. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Angelique.
Thanks. I just want to say that I've got a concern regarding the breakthrough infections and hesitancy, because what is going to happen is we understand, but the average public out there doesn't understand. And the more breakthrough infections we get after being vaccinated, the more the average person out there will say, why do I need to go and vaccinate? I'm not going to vaccinate myself every 3 to 6 months. This vaccine is not working. It's a money-making scheme. We just need to be very, very careful on how we are going to go out there and telling the public or giving them the assurance that, it's still good to take the vaccine, because remember, we understand, but they don't. So I do have a concern around that. And for now, I think most of our emphasis should be on the non-pharmaceutical interventions. That should be a mantra. It should be the thing that we emphasize the most out there. Because I can already foresee with frequent booster shots, people are going to say, I'm not going to go for that. Thanks.
I think I would echo this point of Dr. Angelique. I think it's a very important point. We are already facing this problem in India. Many people after first dose of vaccine got COVID. And what people did is they refused to take the vaccine, the second dose. So we have actually, our whole vaccination program is almost now struggling to ensure that the second dose is given. And you are absolutely right that now we are saying we want to have a booster. So even in US, I saw this hesitancy that they don't want to take the third dose. And I'm sure Dr. Chong will have an opinion that in Singapore, they have allowed boosters. But they'll say that when vaccine is important, why give the booster? When you know you're going to get a breakthrough infection. So it's most important that we vaccinate everybody as early, as quickly, and tell them that vaccines save lives. Vaccines do not prevent infections. Vaccines make the infection less fatal and is life-saving. So I think we will have to tell a common goal theme, all of us, that vaccine is the one which is the lifesaver. It allows you to save your life and probably save you from severe disease, and definitely is our immunity booster. So just like in COVID times, we need economic boost, Saurabh, because you are a finance guy. We also need an immunity booster. Vaccine is our immunity booster. And that is what we have to keep on telling all the time, that we need to boost our immunity. And the best way to boost the immunity is to give a vaccine. Dr. Chong?
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. I agree with you. Shall we do, Saurabh, shall we do a country roundup at this point?
Yes, we can cover the country updates, and in case anybody has questions during that country update, they can ask questions. So we can start with you.
All right. I think in Singapore, we are just looking, I was just looking at the latest, we have about 2,000 cases a day. And I think our ICU numbers are all right. Most of the patients have very mild symptoms. 98.7% have very mild symptoms. Over the last 1 month, about 0.8% need oxygen, and 0.2% are in ICU, and 0.2% have perished. So we have now vaccinated 85% of the population, eligible population, 8% are children. So the total target is 92%, and 1,000 cases as of today. So it seems to be tapering down from a high of 3 to 5,000. We're coming down slowly to about 1,000 a day. 24% have received boosters. So that's the state of Singapore. And we've opened vaccination travel lanes with several countries, many countries now. So international travel is starting to resume. So that's where we are right now. Thanks.
Can I request Dr. Marie from Japan? We have been missing an update from her for very long.
Yes.
Thank you very much. As the Dr. Joshi mentioned, that it seems like it's the Delta variant is vanished in Japan right now. We tested positive only around 200 cases, only 200 cases in entire nation. We don't know why, but we had almost 80% of people has second dose, and especially 65 and older has a 90% get the shot. We are planning to have a booster shot for especially the immunocompromised or medical staff early next year. So it seems like we are enjoying a little kind of a vacation to wait for Omicron is coming. Thank you very much.
I would just make a comment there. Mari, you are very right. Japan almost has self-destructed Delta. And there was a news article which we read that in Japan, there has been the Delta has the derivatives of Delta. The genomic sequence from the Japanese authorities have shown that the derivatives of Delta are less virulent, less transmissible. That is probably one of the reasons you have been able to do a very good this thing. And also, I think you have to be congratulated because your vaccine coverage has been very high.
Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Joshi, would you say that the local Delta variants in Japan have kind of become less virulent, less transmissible? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I'll send you a paper also on the group. I'll put it that Delta has almost self-destructed itself. It has also almost like there have been errors in the proofreading, so the transmission has come to a halt. So it's a mutation within mutation. And that's what is happening also in some parts of India. For example, in New Delhi, where Saurabh is, there is virtually no Delta now. They don't even report more than 50 cases. So just like in Kerala, Dr. Marthan Pillai, or in Maharashtra, we still are seeing the virus. But in North India, there is virtually no virus there, just like Japan. So also it appears that there is a vacation time, as Dr. Mary has very nicely said. Let us hope that the vacation is long lasting and is not disrupted by any other variant of concern.
But why that, Dr. Joshi? Is there any particular reason why?
So the hypothesis is that the grandchildren of Delta or the Delta derivatives, they are supposed to be not as virulent or as transmissible as the parent. So as the mutations evolve, it's an evolutionary process that they become commensals, and that is what is being hypothesized. Like you saw in Botswana or in South Africa, in the HIV immunocompromised population, there was a reservoir, and in the reservoir probably the excess cluster of mutations occurred. Similarly, the reverse also can occur, that the mutations can become non-fatal or non-harmful and non-transmissible, and that's probably what has happened in Japan or maybe in Delhi.
Dr. Joshi, is there also a role to play in terms of the, we always talk about neutralizing antibodies, but is there a role to play with the T cell immunity side of it?
I think so. That is the most important thing. In the host response of the human body, it is the T cells which make all the difference. And the memory cells also make all the difference. Neutralizing antibodies are measurable and diagnosable and detectable. So when they do vaccine trials, they actually measure them. So they are good for regulators to show that it works. But if you ask me truly what really makes the response is how much interferon your T cell makes when the virus is actually exposed to the body. So that is really the truth. So I agree with you that T cell response has been, and we don't have easy non-invasive or invasive tests for estimating T cells except research setups.
I always remember an interesting piece of data when I was reading about CAR T cell, the new therapies for cancer. That is, one activated CAR T cell can eliminate up to 20 to 30 million cancer cells. I always remember that statistic. So I think T cells are actually probably a very, very important, a part which we have not been able to measure in our fight against COVID. Do we have, Sarab, do we have somebody else to update us?
Yeah, we let's invite Dr. Ravi Naidu. And yeah.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, Dr. Joshi. Very informative, but I think we are still in the beginning stage of Omicron. Probably next week or the week after, Dr. Joshi may be able to give us further updates, I hope, because this has been actually a worrying thing for many people now. Well, as for Malaysia, we are still in that 5,000 cases region. The occupancy in hospitals and ICUs has come down. There seems to be an improvement. Vaccination has gone up to 90% for the adult population. The teenage population, that is the 12 to 17, is about 70%. So things are going back to normal. Schools have started now. Universities have started. Everybody is back to school, but the children are still given an option to do online if they want to. They can sit at home and go online, or the children can go to schools. But I think that'll be probably till end of the year. Then come January, we'll have to see what happens, provided this Omicron doesn't come and create some havoc during this period of time. And I'm glad that many of the countries, things are doing well. India, Pakistan, Singapore. We hope that all over the world we face a downtrend in this COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can I have Dr. Sajad and Dr. Salma from Pakistan?
Good morning. This is Dr. Salma.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Salma. No problem.
Okay. What I was saying was the rate in Pakistan, the corona, by the grace of Allah Almighty, has decreased. Yesterday, there were 200 something, but today, again, there are 411 new cases. So far in Pakistan, 13,500 cases are active, which is a good news because last month we had about 25,000 active cases. And the deceased so far in Pakistan is 28,704. So far we've been good, but this new variant is cause of concern for us, and I've missed the first part of the session. So if somebody could brief me generally what we should do about it. What I wanted to say was in Pakistan, 35% population has been fully vaccinated, that is with 2 doses, and 22% have had 1 dose, which I think is good for a developing country like us. Thank you. I give it to Dr. Kesser to add his part.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Salma. You are very rightly explained the situation of Pakistan. I would just would like to know from Dr. Russell. I think he's here from Australia. I have just heard last night that Australia imposed 10 days lockdown all their cities. Is it true, or is it true? Then why they are doing that, Dr. Russell?
Sajad, no, there is no lockdown here. I don't know who told you that there was. There is no lockdown. What they've just brought out is joined with, along with the Europe and Canada and USA, with the stopping of the flights from Africa, from the 8 countries or 9 countries from Southern Africa.
Okay.
That's what has come.
Okay.
There was a lockdown in one part of Northern Territory where a lot of indigenous people, Catherine, where they had an outbreak. Okay, now that there's a reason the indigenous or the Aboriginal Australian population has not got they haven't taken a lot of vaccine. Okay, so they were, somehow it escaped. Someone went in and it's remote. Catherine is in Northern Territory, so they had put a lockdown there in that area, and I think that's very much under control. But otherwise, there's no lockdown. Fortunately, you remember that Chong will know that Melbourne is the most lockdown city, holding the record of 264 days. So we don't want to hear that also again. But now this is, and of course, we have a big worry about this new, because at the moment, there are 10 or 20 passengers from South Africa who are in quarantine in Northern Territory. And out of that, I think a couple of them are positive, but they have not yet been able to, they have not done the identifying whether this has got the new vaccine, the new variant. So that was today's, because they're in there is the quarantine center in Northern Territory. So there are some 20 or so passengers who are in quarantine, out of which a couple are positive, but they haven't been able to clarify whether that's just today. So we'll know, because so far it hasn't come to Australia, but they're just thinking about that. Otherwise, since you have brought me in, we are doing already. We've reached a 90%. Dr. Chong, everything in Melbourne, 90% of the population has had its vaccine, crossed 90%. Hopefully, New South Wales, Sydney is around 95, and Canberra is 99%. So we have now one of the most vaccinated population in the world. Of course, the other parts are catching up. Western Australia is still in less than 70 or somewhere. But overall, that's been good. And the other important thing is we are still getting cases. But interestingly, this is for you to know that Victoria has been getting roughly 1,000 cases, predominantly from non-vaccinated people. But the other important thing is that we've had a drop in the hospitalization. Okay, even though we're having 1,000 a day or roughly around that, there's only 300 odd people in hospital and less than 40 in intensive care. So that means the vaccine is certainly helping in that way. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Russell. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. I'll be headed to Melbourne next week to see my son.
I know. That's why that's why I keep saying that. And of course,
very good.
Sajjad has got his son in Adelaide. They're doing well, but they just opened up 2 days ago. They were a COVID-free state, but they've just opened up last week. They finally opened to the non-COVID states. Okay, so they are geared up and waiting for it.
So these guys have got one foot in Singapore and one foot in Australia.
Dr. Russell, my son and my daughter-in-law is back in Karachi nowadays.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Very good. Dr. Chong went there and they came to us.
Anyone else for a country update? I don't think I have Alvin here today. Do I have Alvin here today from Hong Kong?
But is someone else from Hong Kong there? Is someone else? No.
Dr. Pillay has given us an update. Dr. Joshi has given us an update for India.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Indian update, part of it already has been mentioned by both of us, and we definitely are in a comfortable zone. The whole of the North India, no reporting has been there. And today, the number has been 8,000, which is 21% less than yesterday. Even those pockets where infection still persists, the number is definitely coming down. The country is now very open, but only insisting on vaccination card whenever you visit a hotel or you want to travel. That is mainly to encourage more vaccination among the people who already have not vaccinated. Today, our Prime Minister is having a high-powered meeting to review vaccination as well as the new variant that has been reported, not in India, but in other countries. So the situation is definitely under control. Our treatment modalities have changed. Monoclonal antibodies, even as a daycare, it is being given, and none of them report any subsequent problems, even with the one shot of this. So that protocol is now being followed, so that hospitals, the non-COVID patients are more than COVID patients now. Almost no COVID patient we can stay in most of the hospitals. So that is where we stand. Thank you.
Dr. Pillai, one question. Are they allowing foreigners to come into India? Of course, probably except the 6 or 7 countries from South Africa.
Pardon?
Are they allowing foreigners to come into India now?
No, today we will be taking a decision at the national level. The change circumstances, the travel restrictions, how far it has to be implemented will be taken today, the decision. As of now, there is no restriction on foreigners to come into India, and provided they have the 2-dose vaccination certificate with them, and even the quarantine is not in existence now. Maybe today's meeting will decide the change circumstances.
Yeah, I believe there's a high-level meeting today, and I think the Prime Minister will address the nation shortly. Dr. Joshi, do you have any update for us?
Yes, so I think there will be, as Dr. Marthan Pillai said, that the inbound travel will have probably from those 14 geographies of concern, a possibility of a quarantine policy. I don't think any banning of flights or etc., something like that will happen, but there will be a more stricter quarantine policy, which is in consonance with the public health science.
Okay, Dr. Joshi, there was a question of ivermectin in one of the chat groups, especially for Japan. But do you want to comment anything on ivermectin related to?
Current data on ivermectin has been poor.
Okay.
And not been very robust and reproducible.
Okay, we've come to the end of our session, and maybe I'll just like some parting words from Dr. Joshi before we wrap up the session for today.
Absolutely.
I think we have to be more cautious and careful. This has put COVID back in the spotlight. People had stopped wearing masks, stopped doing the COVID appropriate behavior, and been little more complacent. So I see it as a wake-up call. I don't see it as a panic. I think we just need to be more vigilant, and we hope and pray that we are able to go out of the way to help our brothers from South Africa, brothers and sisters, as well as whole of Africa, and vaccinate every person on planet Earth. See, this is the wake-up call and a reminder to the whole world that COVID is a global problem in a global village. Until every human being on planet Earth is safe, we are not safe. And I think this is why this Omicron has rekindled that whole philosophy of equality, equanimity, and that it's still not over. Yes, it's likely to become endemic in some geographies of the world, but the pandemic is still around. And if we have a new strain lurking, as Dr. Angelica very nicely said, in an immunocompromised HIV-like host, if there is a persistent strain, you could still have birth of another strain. And that's what we want to avoid in the future. And I think we are in better space than what we were in 20 months back, because we have better diagnostics, better therapeutics, and better outcomes. And the good thing is that I hope and pray that the South African patients infected by the new strain have only mild disease, no deaths, and no severe disease. And their healthcare system is not overburdened with another wave.
We also have Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee, would you like to comment anything before we close the session? I'm not sure he's still there.
No,
we just saw him in the early day.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much for your time here. And it's always a brilliant session, especially today's topic was very hot because of all the media and all the interest. So thank you very much, and Dr. Joshi, for coming up with such a brilliant presentation at such short notice, and give us a very good perspective on this new threat to our global village. Thank you all, and we'll hope to see you all again next week, same time, Saturday, for another update on the COVID situation globally. Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very much.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Joshi, for giving us an update.